Blog Talk Radio.
Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Light Sports Ramble. I am Troy Otradovic. As always, I'm joined with Evan Watallison. Evan, I'm glad you made it home safe.
My shoulder today?
Well, I'm not worried about your shoulder. You're talking about driving home and cops blocking off your road. I have to remind you of something.
Looking over my shoulder today.
Well, I have to remind you of something, Evan. Saturday's rant. When I introduce you and I say you're running red lights, I don't mean it literally. You're not supposed to run the red lights. So, did you make it home all right? I know you said there's a cop blocking off your street.
Yeah, I did. I had to go around the block and sneak in the house, but yeah, I did.
So if you
no, serious, there's some accident with the semi here on the street here, so they're blocking it off. So
well, I hope everybody's all right.
We'll see.
Hope there's no injuries. So, but with that said, Evan, we got a great episode today. We're back into the Packers series of evaluating players, offensive line today. A unit that all year sometimes we were very critical of. Other times we gave the praise when necessary. We're going to go through. We got a lot to grade out, a lot of injuries, but a lot of pieces to grade out today as we look at the whole series of Packers offensive linemen. What was that?
Just to stop you for a minute. Before we get into too much detail. One guy I want to start off with. I think you remember the other day when we were doing this, I said there's only 2 A's I'm giving out.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Well, the one player that is definitely not getting that A is Marshall Newhouse. Might as well just give him an F right now and not discuss him any further because I think Packer fans, they all have the same opinion of him that you and I have.
Oh, come on now. I had this big, long, drawn-out evaluation of Marshall Newhouse right here on my pad of paper.
Really?
Yeah, I was going to cut you off so I could talk extensively about Marshall Newhouse. Nah, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, sorry, I kind of stole your thunder then.
Nah, here's the deal. Marshall Newhouse, F, free agent, get out of Green Bay, don't want you on the team anymore. That's how I'm grading. So I'm glad you cut me off, Evan. Let's move on. Marshall Newhouse, already put in the books as an F. Had him in pen. Didn't even have to change that one. So there's one critical thing that you and I have talked about. Back now to the serious side of things. And I'm serious about the F, but moving into maybe some of the more positive things that did happen. I want to go over just a couple things before we get into the players, Evan. Did some research today, offensive line. They allowed 45 sacks this year, 24th in the league. Quarterback hits, they allowed 75 quarterback hits. Didn't really rank near the bottom. It was the middle of the pack in the NFL. The one number that I really liked when I was doing the stats, and I was actually quite surprised that it was this average, but the rushing average was 4.7 this year, which is very, very good. If we can average 4.7 yards a carry, that is a good average. But I'll get into that with some of the individual grades. There's one other thing that I wanted to mention, and that was total penalties. We had last year 24 offensive holding penalties on the line, and then false starts, which does include wide receivers, tight ends, running backs, but there was 14 false starts. We normally attribute those to offensive linemen, but that does include all of the wide receivers, all of the running backs, and the tight ends in that number. But I thought the 24 holding penalties, it was a stat I looked up as I gave out grades to the individual players. I had found a website that was NFLpenalties.com and broke down every player and the number of penalties they had, holdings, false starts, things of those nature. But with that said, Bud, we'll just start out at it, and we look at really the most current depth chart. It's not going to include the injured players, of course. But why don't we start out with David Bakhtiari, and we'll just jump right into it. What do you think about his play this year, coming in and stepping into that offensive line, probably a little bit earlier than some expected.
Looking at Bakhtiari, there were really a lot of high expectations on him being a rookie fourth-round pick out of Alabama. So he didn't really have to do a whole lot to get a super high grade. Now, for Bakhtiari, I'll give him a solid B. He held his own against Jared Allen in that first Viking game, and he seemed to hold his own most of the season. He seemed to be a rock over there, and what he was able to do this year, he was able to hopefully solidify that spot in the next season, which will allow Brian Bulaga to now move back to the right side and man the right tackle spot. So hopefully that's what it will allow the Packers to do. But I'll get back to the a B.
I'm a little bit lower than you. I graded him out at a C+, and partly because he led the team in penalties. 13 penalties this year, 9 holding. It seemed like every game he was having not a hold, but some type of penalty. I know he's a rookie. I would give him the benefit of the doubt in some of these situations, but I thought he did hold his own. I think that he has a lot of room for improvement, but I doubt that he'll be playing on the left side like you said next year. Hopefully Brian Bulaga comes back and recovers well, so we can insert him back into the lineup, move him back to the right.
I was talking about putting Bulaga. I was putting Bulaga at the right tackle and leaving Bakhtiari at the left.
You think? I'll tell you what. I think
he did enough to hold his own there.
I'm not quite sure. I don't know how. And with that, every once in a while you will throw a wrench at me every once in a while. That's one of them. I don't have a definitive yes or no. I agree or disagree with you on that. It might be one of those where I might not be opposed to it. I would move him back. I think in the overall scheme of things, but again, too, a lot depends on the Bulaga injury. So, is he going to come back 100%? He was out for a whole year. Bakhtiari did play well at times. I mean, the reason I gave him a C+ is because some of the inconsistencies that I saw. But I think he's going to be a good lineman for Green Bay in the future as he continues to grow. So my expectations, and I know this is months down the road when we get into the preview of 2014, but he's going to be one player on that line that I have very high expectations of to make a big, significant jump from year 1 to year 2. I'm not sure, the expectations of him coming in to do what he did were there when training camp started. So I'm happy with his play. But with that said, let's move on. Just right down the line to Josh, and I always screw this up because of the S's in my weird Canadian accent that people in PA say I have. But let's go with Sitton. How do you think he played? Come on. Get off of me, man. I'm leaving it up to you.
I don't know. He was a solid self overall. He tends to be a rock. He did well over there. He's one I'll give a B+ to. I think he brings an attitude to the offensive line. I think he was the big reason why they had so much success running the football. He just brings an attitude to the team. He's a good locker room guy. Only a handful of times I had seen him, have a play that I wasn't overly impressed with. But yeah, I would say I would give him a B+.
I'm right there with you too. Right on the cusp. I think this is a guy that really could move into the A range at some time, in my opinion. I think what's holding him back is just some stupid type penalties. When I look at some of the penalties that got called, the holding is what I'm talking about. There's sometimes I don't feel that he really needs to extend those hands. If he could just control that and be able to channel some of that, and I call it aggression. I mean, the guy has it on the field, like you said. The thing I was impressed with, no false start penalties for Josh this year, and that was a good thing. So not one false.
Maybe he hears better out of the right ear than he does the left ear.
Must. I also give him a higher grade because of the flexibility he had and getting forced into, having to move with that line a little bit. And, I think he's a leader on that team, and I think he's able to really solidify that. So, yeah, I'm with you. I give him a B+. So in the middle, we had Dietrich-Smith. What do you think about the play of our center?
He's one that I would break it down. Run blocking wise, I would grade his run blocking in the B range. I think he did really well getting to the second level. He's good hand placement on run blocking. But if now I'm looking at how he pass blocks, then I'm going to dump him down to a C+. So I guess I'll give him a B- because he pass blocked, he ran block well, but he doesn't run block well. So I would say C+, B- range.
I put him in at a solid B. I think it was evident when he got hurt how much he meant to that line as far as, being the guy that's going to make the calls, going to bring that line with the blocking assignments. I can't disagree with your assessment. He's a much better run blocker than a pass protector. So I agree with your assessment there. We're pretty much on the same page. You give him a B-. I give him a B. Now, he is a free agent this year, and we might as well just talk about it right now as we have his name on our lips. Do you think we should bring Dietrich-Smith back, or do you think we should go in free agency? I'm not sure what we can get in the draft at center, and I'm not really sure where else we would go with center on the current roster. So what is your thought? Do we bring back Dietrich-Smith?
At the right price, I say by all means bring him back if it's the right price, but I'm not going to get into a spending max for him. He's not special. He's not, a special center that they're going to have a hard time replacing, which I personally think Scott Wells was. I think Scott Wells was very underappreciated, and I do think that Dietrich-Smith is underappreciated at times. But he's not special, and the guy to keep an eye on is going to be J.C. Tretter. He's a guy they drafted in the draft this past year, and then he ended up getting injured, breaking his ankle during OTAs, and he's working out with the team late in the season. So it's interesting to see where he's at in regards to recovery and see if he can play center. But he's from Ivy League school, very intelligent, good body size. I think he's bigger than Dietrich-Smith, so he's the guy to keep an eye on is J.C. Tretter, who I'll give an incomplete, by the way, if we're going to throw him in there.
Yeah, I didn't even have him on the list, bud.
Okay.
I didn't have him there just because he hadn't had a chance to get in and see the game. Like you, I would like to see Dietrich-Smith back. I don't think he's going to get much on the open market. I know that he had the injury there, and we had to make some line adjustments. I don't think he had shown enough this year to go out and warrant a huge pay raise. I think the Packers will be able to re-sign him because I don't think he's going to get a lot of offers from another team. Also, I think the relationship that he's built with Aaron Rodgers, being the center, could be a benefit because, like I said, I don't see anybody going out and giving him a huge pay raise to come in and anchor their line. Now, again, I could be wrong because I am an idiot with an opinion, but just from what I've seen, I'd like to see him back. If somebody does offer him the money, though, I'm with you. Do not break the bank for Dietrich-Smith because, like you said, we can take that money, go elsewhere, try to fill that void. But I do think, and I'm going to make a comment, many, many times the center is so underappreciated. You brought up a blast from the past. I was actually a little bit peeved when Wells left because I thought he deserved to have a bigger contract. I thought that he was playing really well in the middle, And I thought that was a huge loss for us when they let him go. But I understand the business.
It was, but what the Rams gave him, I wouldn't have given that.
Yeah, I'm not sure if I would have went that high, but I'll tell you what, it didn't seem like we made much of an attempt. And I know they gave him a lot of money, and then it's normal. They go get these big contracts, and then they don't produce too much. But moving on, we'll move on to the one guy with the initials, TJ Lang. And I'll tell you what, I follow him on Twitter, and man, that guy is a hoot. The guy's a hoot on Twitter.
He is.
I'll tell you, he doesn't care what he says on Twitter, and it's actually quite hilarious. So, what do you think though about his play on the field? We know his Twitter feeds are hilarious. What do you think about his play?
I was quite disappointed overall with him this year. He did have to do a lot that he's not used to doing, like play center at times. But, I think he could have done better. I'll give him a C+. I was expecting more from him. And I guess I'll just leave it at that. He didn't play well against Detroit, and he needed to, and he didn't. So I just didn't think he did anything overly special. He didn't do anything overly bad, but didn't do anything overly special either. So I'd say B-, C+.
I'm lower than you. I give him a solid C. And there's one thing, and you know this from me. On that offensive line, it's the old grinding the gears and getting me all worked up. It's false starts. It is false starts. Those are the things that really get my blood pumping. And TJ Lang had 4 of them. And like you
said, one of them, they caught him for the false start, but they could have caught on Barkley as well, so because they both moved at the same time. Well, they just have to put the blame on Lang. So I guess I would say he said he had 4.
Okay, so then I'll flip it.
So I'd say 3.5.
I'll flip it then because
3.5.
When I grade out Barkley, I'm going to grade out the same thing.
False start.
Yeah, well, false start. So Barkley had 3, Lang had 4. We can flip them 4 and 3. Doesn't matter to me. I hate false starts.
Well, I would say 3.5 each, really.
Sure, go 3.5 then, because I got the same beef with both of them. And again, I've never played, and you had played a little high school football. I've never had to be in a cadence and get off the ball on a certain cadence. But it's just one of those things. I know people say the crowd noise and all of these things and watching the ball and that, but maybe it's just a pet peeve of mine. It's just false starts irritate the hell out of me. And so he had 4 of them. And like you said, he did nothing special this year. He never stood out. All of the recaps that we did, how many times do we mention his name about being spectacular? None that I can recall. And I know he had to move along the line with the injuries, and that's tough to do. But to me, it looked like he was just going through the motions this year and going out there and trying to do his job. And like you said, didn't do it great, didn't do it terrible. I gave him an average grade, which is a C. So let's move on then to the other guy I'm talking about with false starts, which is Barkley. What do you think about him?
Barkley, the biggest problem I had with him is the slow starts that he had in games. Like the beginning part of the game, he struggled. He struggled at first, struggled in pass pro, struggled in run pro. But as the game got on, he got better. Because of his starts and the false starts that you had talked about, and I know I heard him quite a bit for holds. I forget exactly how many times. I'm sure you have that in front of you, possibly.
I do.
But when I'm looking at Barkley, I'll give him a C-. If he started the games how he finished, then I would give him a better grade. But I need more consistency from him.
I'm with you. I believe that maybe I was just in this average type thing when I was grading out. I gave him a C. And it probably could have been.
He is average.
It could have been lower. Like I said, 3 false starts, 2 holding penalties, and.
Oh, me too. Wow.
Yeah, only credited 2 on.
Unless you got away with a lot, then.
Well,
you got away with quite a few.
Well, there's a lot of times I thought for sure they could have threw a flag on him. Again, he's a young guy. I think he's got a lot of upside, a lot of potential, possibly. But on an offensive line, it's a unit. I mean, you got to operate with the unit. And I'm not saying I didn't trust him. It's just one-on-one and his inconsistency, I didn't know what we were going to get. It goes back to one of those things where sometimes he could play at a level where I'm like, yeah, that's great. That's awesome. That's awesome. Then he plays at another level, and I'm like, are you kidding me? Come on. And so maybe it has to do with the youth, maybe a year in the system, some more OTAs. I'm not sure. But again, average player to me, average year. So I graded him out at a C. So when we look at those guys that were basically the starting five, we're rolling in there, B's and C's. So we've already talked about this guy that's already solidified as an F, so we don't need to go down that road anymore. And then the other two players, in my opinion, didn't get a lot of time in the game. But let's talk about Lane Taylor. How did you grade him out, bud?
Incomplete. Didn't see enough of him. I know he ended up finishing the Detroit game when Newhouse was just, not only was he a turnstile and a tackle, he also was a turnstile and a guard. But I give him an incomplete. He has a good potential, but he just didn't see enough of him.
Well, I had incomplete on him, and then I'm going to even go down again. The next person is Derek Sherrod, and I gave him an incomplete too. So that's where I'm with those two. I really liked the pick with Sherrod when the pick was made, and the guy had a horrific, and I'm into repeating words today. I just noticed that. So people probably make fun of me today about that, but that leg injury that he
Did I make fun of you about it?
Yeah, go ahead. It's not like you don't make fun of me every day anyway. That's
now it's no fun because you gave me permission, so now I can't.
Yeah, well, don't do it then. But my whole comment would be then, what would be different today than any other day? Go ahead, make fun of me.
Yeah.
Because when we hang up, I'm going to go in the corner and cry then because somebody made fun of me. That's just who I am. But the Sherrod injury, to me, I like the pick. I like the guy's natural ability. I think he can be a difference maker on the line, but, he came back from the knee injury late in the year, got a little bit of playing time. I just, again, didn't see enough to see if he was fully recovered. He must have been. He put the game pads on. It'll be interesting to see him in a full off season now, to get a full year of workout in, to get some OTAs in, to get a full training camp in. So I had mentioned Bakatare next year. I have huge expectations for Derek Sherrod. I really believe that this guy can really go in and help that offensive line out. So what is your long-term outlook for him? I mean, I'm very high on the guy, but what is your opinion of him?
Man, you go from positive to now I have to be Mr. Negative on him. Like you, I did like the pick when they got him. A lot of raw talent, a lot of raw potential. But with the broken leg and just how long it's taken him to recover, I don't ever see him being a starter in the league. I just see him being a special teams guy on PAT field goal. And if they need a guy in a pinch, then, he'll be, decent in the pinch. But if he's someone that they have to rely long-term at that position, so let's say Barclay and Bulaga both get injured, knock on wood, it doesn't happen, but if they both get hurt next year and they have to miss extensive playing time, and Derek Sherrod's the guy, I just don't feel comfortable with them over there with the, with how long it takes them to come back from that injury and how horrific bad it was. I just don't see him ever being a full-time player in the league anymore.
Wow,
that's past him with the injury.
It took us till Thursday to disagree this week. That's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. I thought we were going to make it all week without disagreeing one time. So that's cool. The one thing, and we talk about it taking him so long to come back. And again, we don't know if he's fully recovered. And so he may never get back to any old form. But like I said, where I'm seeing the optimism is I'm seeing that he finally has a full offseason to make it or break it. Because to be honest with you, I'll point a little bit toward where you're going that he may never start if he doesn't start this year. If he doesn't make it this year with the full season, with everything that's went on, then I'll be right in your corner, saying he'll never start in the NFL. But that's where I'm giving him the benefit of the doubt. With the OTAs, the offseason workouts, the training camp, he's going to have his opportunity. But now he's behind the eight ball because these young guys were drafted. And so now he's got to jump over other people that he didn't so much have to when they picked him number one. So it'll be interesting to see. I just have a lot of faith in the guy. So we'll see as time goes on who's going to be right on that one. It may take a year for us to see who's right, bud. But
I hope you are, but I just have my doubts.
Well, we'll see. We shall see what happens in the near future. So just under 4 minutes to go, bud. That wraps up the Packers' offensive line. Overall, what do you think we need to do in the offseason as far as offensive line goes?
I think they have to get a legitimate, either a backup center or someone that can start. Dietrich-Smith's been a good player, but like I said, he's not worth breaking the bank on. If he wants to leave, let him leave. If he's going to demand a lot of money or somebody gives him an offer he can't refuse, why bother matching it? But they do need a legitimate backup or starting center because the issue they've had is depth. They've had no depth over the past couple of years, and thankfully Bakhtiari surprised, I think, everybody with how quickly he picked up the left tackle position in the NFL. It didn't help when he had Treader get hurt in OTAs, but they just need more solid depth. They can't, go into a game, have the center get hurt, and have to move P.J. Lang into center and put Marshall Newhouse, the human turnstile, in a guard.
God, I never
not going to another season like that.
They
need a center.
I never want to say that name again until he signs somewhere else, which means I hopefully will never.
We're never going to say that name again.
And I was just saying, hopefully I'll never have to say the name again. And so after this phone call, I never foresee that name coming out of my mouth again unless he signs with another team, and I'll be the first one to mention it on the Ramble that he has signed with so-and-so. So other than that, I never want to say that name again. But go ahead.
Go ahead.
I was going to say that.
I was going to say, as we wrap up the Packer talk, I was going to say, I don't know if you had heard, but, baseball news, there is some breaking news in baseball today if you're a Brewer fan.
I'm just
Can we share it with the listeners?
90 seconds.
Sure. I'm just going to laugh at you because as you interrupted me and I said, go ahead, I was going to say that wraps it up for the offensive line. So, Evan, we have some Major League Baseball news today. Let's share it with the listeners. So
we know each other too well.
Sometimes I just wonder about this. But, there's good Brewer news today, and there was a signing today, and I'll let you take over with just a minute to go, and then you can wrap it up, bud.
Seconds.
Well, the Milwaukee Brewers today signed pitcher Matt Garza to a 4-year deal worth $50 million. Garza, a 30-year-old right-hander who spent some time with the Cubs, so the Brewer fans should be quite familiar with him. I think it's a great signing. It adds to your Kyle Loesch, your Yvonne Gallardo. Now you got Garza, who's a proven pitcher, and if Willie Peralta continues to develop and plays like he did second half of last season, this could be another special year for Milwaukee, but we shall see.
Yeah, I love the signing. We're just under 30 seconds, so we won't get into it, but I love the signing of Garza. And so with that said, everyone, hope you enjoyed the recap today of the offensive linemen. As always, our pleasure to come to you this evening. We'll see you all at the next red light.